Everybody at tuned to B2B Binge, welcome back after the break. We've had like amazing 8 sessions. This is the last segment, and we have 4 more talks to go. And we're starting off with Lauren, which it can't get more timelier than this. It's about opening sales calls during the COVID, especially. So for all you sales guys out there, this is kind of totally a godsend. So Lauren is the president of Girls Club. She's a well-acclaimed speaker. She's written books. I can't wait to hear from her on what she has to say. So on to you, Lauren, without any ado, you're right on time.
All right, look at us go. Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here, everybody. As Guru said, I'm the president of or founder of 3 brands, Factor 8, the Sales Bar, and Girls Club. And I'm going to be sharing some really fast tips on how we should be opening calls, how we should be selling right now, and a little bit of extra value around how we work together virtually. So I want to start by just saying to everybody out there, with every challenge does come opportunity. And as leaders during this time, I'm hearing people talking about the opportunity to build better relationships, to find new markets, improve our culture, to deeply qualify and profile, and of course, improve our sales skills and build some pipelines. So I'll talk a little bit about that. So for Factor 8, we've been teaching folks how to open sales calls to keep people on the phone for 10 plus years. And here are the basic components, right? A great introduction is short. It's not when we start to tell people everything that we do and why we're calling. The actual goal of an introduction is to get the prospect or the decision maker talking as quickly as possible. It's a little bit of a mindset shift. Our introductions need to answer who we are, what do we want, and why should they care? But right now, selling during a pandemic, we have to add an important point. Why should they care right now? Why should they take your call right now? One of the biggest mistakes that we see in sales call introductions is that people immediately are leading with a pitch. Your value prop is not your introduction, right? When I call and say, hey, this is Lauren, and I'm the president of Factor 8, and we're the world's leading inside sales rep and manager training company. All that does is scream sales pitch. And right now, it's just especially gross to be leading with a pitch. I talk to people every day who tell me, you know what? We're keeping track of these people who are coming in and just pitching right now. And I don't want to work with them. And frankly, they're right. So I want to talk a little bit about what we normally teach and how we can use that while we're selling during a pandemic. It's called a SWIFT intro. The SWIFT intro stands for, so what's in it for them? It's all about adding value in those first couple seconds of the intro. And here are the components. We start with their name, then our name in an abbreviated version, because remember, we got to fit this in 10 seconds or less. I trained HP one time and the guy would say, well, I'm calling with Hewlett-Packard Enterprises small to medium sales division on the West Coast region. It's like, shut up. You're Bob with HP. Get on with it. The next part is the SWIFT purpose. And this is where we need to add the value, right? What's in it for them right now? And then the secret sauce at the end of the SWIFT intro is 1 to 3 SWIFT questions. These are closed questions that are very easy to answer and gets the prospect talking right away. So it might sound a little bit like Guru, LB, calling with Factor 8 and Girls Club. I'm calling to talk a little bit about how your company is adjusting to the global pandemic. Is everybody still working from home? How many folks on your team? How's that been going? See those quick questions at the end? I'm immediately tossing control over to Guru. I'll give you another example in a second. But let's talk about what's next when we're selling during this time. The intro's goal is to get them talking and keep them on the phone. But now it's time to bring in the empathy. And folks, I see a lot of people not doing this so well. I call it rote empathy. So the really gross salespeople are leading with no empathy at all, right? Hi, I'm here to pitch you. Then the next level, maybe the next level up, is the rote empathy. Hey, Trust all is well with you right now. Now I'm going to pitch you. Hi, how are you? Hope things are good. Now I'm going to pitch you. So let's talk about some do's and don'ts. Don't go for the same goal of your call. If you're typically calling to get a meeting, maybe that's the goal now of call 3. Goal number 1 needs to be to connect, to have a human connection. And that's a tremendous opportunity. It slows down your sales cycle, but it will work better if we keep it focused on the goal of building a relationship first. Don't do the I trust you're doing well, right? Gee, how are you? The examples that I just gave. And don't ask just one question and then move on. True empathy comes in the follow-up questions. So that's under the do level, right? If we just ask someone, hi, how are you? What we get as an answer is fine. And let's be honest, we Yanks are famous for that, right? You come to America and everybody says, hi, how are you? But nobody listens to the answer. Well, that's because it's practically a greeting for us. We've been trained to answer how are you with fine, not a deep dive into how we really are. So if you want to connect with someone during this time, you've got to dig deeper. So ask a few follow-up questions. How's working from home going for you? Are you working with kids as well? How is your team? How is your business? Ask the follow-ups to show you truly care, and that's what empathy is about. The other tip I'll share with you on building empathy and relationships quickly is to share something personal of yourself. If we're trying to get our prospects to open up and have a conversation with us, the way to do that is by opening up ourselves as well. I have shared the fact that, let's be honest, I got jammies under this suit coat right now. I've shared the fact that my children could be barging in this room anytime to get me to buy them something on Fortnite or fix their homeschooling app or, whatever it may be. And let's be honest, they're probably going to be in their undies when they do it. I've shared the fact that I'm drinking way too much wine right now. So open up and your prospects will open up with you. And then another quick tip on empathy is that active empathetic listening means you're following up with empathy. You paraphrase what you heard and then assign a feeling to it. Wow, I get it. That sounds difficult. If I were in your shoes, I might feel a little bit frustrated. It sounds confusing right now. All of those are empathetic paraphrasers. So I know this was really, really quick, high-level tips. It's not a training, but it's some quick tips you can bring back to your team. Let me show you an example of how they might go together. Swift intro with the swift questions and empathy. Guru, LB here from Factor 8. I'm calling to see if I can be of some service in helping you possibly pivot during this crazy time. You largely serve the SaaS industry in India, is that right? It's a yes/no question, and he can come back, right, and correct me if I'm off base there. Hey, but first, are you and your family doing okay? Is everyone healthy? I'm managing homeschooling right now. How about you? Any little ones at home with you as well? Have you managed to retain all of your employees? Tell me about how your company's pivoted during this time. So if I'm asking these questions, I'm opening up a conversation with Guru, and that's the goal, right? So here's the warning, everybody. I know these were high-level tips. Please resist the urge to script it out, okay? No matter how good it is, when reps are reading a script, this is what it sounds like. And right now, more than ever, empathy is important, okay? So how do you do it? We call it the 1, 2, 3 punch of team engagement and development. If you're a leader and you want to re-strategize your outreach, it's going to start with a meeting. Here's our goal. Here's our strategy. I'm laying it out there for everybody. But guess what? People don't take actions after a meeting. You'll know this is the case if you've ever said to somebody, I don't know, I've told my team 1,000,000 times, but they don't do it. They don't do anything differently. Nothing's changing, okay? That's because you missed the step. Number 2, that's where we do the training, okay? So we've spent the last 10 years training folks with Factor 8 and with Girls Club. And when you see a behavior change is when you really dig deeply into it. Training takes 3 or 4 times longer than just a meeting. It allows people to dig in and share their experiences, get their hands dirty or roll up their sleeves with the content. They might role play. They might take an example script, make it their own, and then practice it to build confidence, right? A meeting is one way, a training is always two-way. Now, the third step of the 1, 2, 3 punch is to do some focused call coaching on these messages for the period after you do the training. This is where we engage our managers to follow up, to listen to calls, to give feedback along the way. And focused call coaching on a topic like this will make all the difference. When we skip the middle step of training is where we fail, because our managers are having to take this message and do the heavy lifting with each individual person and do the training one-on-one. And that doesn't work, right? If we can teach the skills we want and get people executing it in step 2, then step 3 is about feedback on the execution. It's bumping a little bit and guiding along the way. And that's where you see sustained skill application, behavior change, and results. So my next 2 slides are a couple quick tips for you. Don't feel like you got to write them all down, because I've got all of these in a download, okay? Some virtual training ideas. If you're taking advantage of awesome webinars like this, take it to the next level by doing it as a group with your team. Sign the whole team up. Add a pre-call and a post-call, right? That interaction I told you is key in training. What do we want to get out of it? What are the goals? And then following up afterwards, saying, what were your takeaways? What actions will we take? Could we role play some of this? If you're doing training yourself virtually, it can be a little bit daunting. Here's a couple quick tips from our archives. Always encourage some video. Don't just share your screen, but encourage them to share as well. Ask them to close everything out to focus. And here's the toughest one. When you ask a question, count to 10. Encourage people to come off mute and interact. It's not training if there's not interaction. We also have virtual call coaching tips. And I'll tell you, the number one thing you can take away from this one is, if you're going to play a call and coach it, download it first. You'll have better replay. We like Zoom the best for sharing calls, and there's a secret little button under share screen right here we're pointing out. You'll see it in the download that will share the audio of the call. So you can get our download and tons more tips on selling with empathy right now on videos, blogs, and this download at factor8.com/binge. We're here to help. We've given away hundreds of hours of free training. We've probably touched 1,000 people in the last 3 weeks, not just with free training about how to do this, but with certifications and job referrals and people who are displaced and connecting them with companies who are still hiring. So anything we can do to add value right now, that's our goal. I think we're ready for some questions.
Lauren, thank you so much. It was a very, very insightful session. And I'll be taking up questions for you, so you can just respond back, and I'll be moderating for you.
Here we go.
Okay. So how do you respond to "we'll get back to you later"?
Oh, that's a tough one, right? And I'm going to assume that this is a live call or an email. Do we have any more information about that?
No, it's just that.
Yeah. I think that "we'll get back to you later" is something we call a brush off. And a brush off is different than an objection. An objection is, I've dug in and I understand your offering, and here's the blockage, right? It's price, it's this, it's that. "We'll get back to you later" is basically just saying, I don't want to talk to you right now. So the best thing we can do to overcome a brush off is do our best to re-engage the contact, okay? We want to get them talking so that we can learn about what's happening and have a chance, at least, to sell. So the idea of getting over a brush off is to pivot and get them to start talking. So here might be an example. "Hey, we'll get back to you later." "Oh, I totally get it. Are things crazy right now?" "We'll get back to you later." "Oh, okay, sure. I completely understand. Are you guys doing okay?" "We'll get back to you later." "Oh, okay. Yeah. Is it a extra busy time in your cycle right now? Has COVID-19 driven, made you guys mad with new priorities? Are you massively shifting?" So you come back with a question. Again, make it easy for them to answer and not defensive. The worst case scenario of this is, "We'll get back to you later." "Oh, what? You're not interested in saving money right now?" Well, now you're just being an ass, right? So understand what they're saying and ask a question about it to get them talking.
Okay.
Then we move from closed questions, maybe some empathy questions, into our open sales questions.
Got it. Next question is, any tips on how to start small talk if you are speaking to CTO or CEO? What topics one can talk about without sounding casual?
Without sounding casual?
Yeah.
When you're dealing with a high-level decision maker, the last thing in the world that they want to hear about is your product features and benefits. What they are willing to talk about is their business, their strategy, possibly their pivot, right? And industry trends. It's one of the best things ever to do during any time to talk with a decision maker about industry trends and how it's affecting them. That helps you sound knowledgeable, and it's a conversation they're willing to have, right? With a trusted advisor. You're coming in as a business leader. Well, we all have the same industry trend happening right now. So I would start there and talk not just about, hey, how are you personally in your your home life and work from home, but talk to me a little bit about your strategy during this time. Have you had to pivot? How has this affected your go-to-market strategy? How has this affected your team? Are you able to retain all of your employees? And really, we want to go high level, and it takes some business acumen to get there. Did that answer the question, do you think, Debarty?
Yeah, that does. Okay, so let's see another question. How do you go about making sales calls when most people in this situation are not ready to buy?
Because they're not ready to buy. Yeah.
Yes.
That's what I mean when I say we've got to change the goal of our conversation a little bit, right? It used to be perhaps it was 3 calls in 3 months and boom, you were moving somebody all the way through the funnel. So everyone is in a different place right now, and we have to respect that. So tip number 1 is segment your list. Let's be smart about who we call. Who's getting busier right now? Who might really need your product and services? And be ruthless with yourself. The answer, oh, everybody should, is not the right answer, right? Come up with 3 lists. These people, they're in trouble. They don't want to hear from me right now. Respect that. These people might actually need me more. These are unknowns in the middle. Then when we are doing the outreach to them, set a different goal, okay? And it looks like this. Maybe the goal of our first call is to deeply build the relationship and the trust. And the goal of the second call is to understand the business situation. And during these 2-3 calls that would normally take half of 1 call, we can deeply profile and qualify these folks, okay? That's a great goal, to understand that, like for our business, for instance, right? I need to know how many sales reps do they have and what type of reps are they? Well, I can find that out. I can find out what they're doing for their training and development. I can find out who maybe they've used in the past. I can find out what's happening with their business and their budgets so that I can determine, right, is this really a good prospect for me or not? Now, the second thing that can and should happen during this is we have an opportunity to find the need and advance the need. So if we're having these conversations, we have a much deeper understanding of their business, their need for our services, when that might be, who the decision makers are. We're stretching out the sales process, but we're doing a better job of it during every step. So remove the pitch and you'll find that people are willing to talk to you. Start with empathy and do anything and everything you can to add value while you learn about each other. And then best case scenario, right? You've got 10, 20, 30 things ready to pop when their business comes back online, maybe 20, 30, 40 that have been disqualified that you would have wasted time on. You might not get them to buy today because we can't unfreeze their budgets unless we convince them it's a screaming hot need. And even then we may not be able to unfreeze their budgets, but you can set yourself up for success as budgets do become a little bit more malleable.
Sure. I think we'll take up one last question, Lauren. So it's from Harjot. He asks, how do you handle a call when the audience has no questions and there is almost zero response? How do you?
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? Yeah. So that's part of our virtual training tips. So if we're doing a one-to-many, like a webinar or a demo or something like that, and you say, okay, any questions? It's the worst thing in the world to hear crickets.
Yeah.
Okay. So here are some tips. The first one is pause more often throughout. Don't talk for 30 minutes straight and then ask for questions, because people probably have tuned out. When you're trying to actually engage people, you need the interaction throughout. So set the expectation up front. Hey, I'm going to be asking people to come off mute. Hey, I'm going to be asking you to chat in. along the way. Would you please close your email, close your chats, focus here on me, right? And here's what it's going to look like for the next 30 minutes, let's say. Now, after you've talked for 5 or 6 minutes, you pause and say, okay, everybody, here's a question. Start with an easy closed question and have them chat it. We're warming them up, right? Are you A or B? And then maybe there's a fill in the blank answer. All right, everybody, chat your answer in. Now we've got them warmed up a little bit. We'll say, all right, I'm going to ask a question and I'm looking for a couple brave souls who will come off mute and talk with me about it. So you can just say, boom, they're going to come off mute. You could have them raise a hand. You could have them chat in their answer. Then you can call on them and say, oh, great, Dabarti, thank you so much for your answer. I really want to hear more about that. My final tip is, instead of saying any questions, say, what questions do you have? Sort of that assumptive close. And then here it is, be silent and count to 10. It's agonizing, just like a sales call, right? You've got to use the silence. After you count to 10, you say, all right, I'm looking for that brave soul. Who's going to come off mute and talk to me about this? You kind of show them, I'm not moving on until I get some engagement here. Hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you so much. It was very insightful, and I hope everybody else, like, you will be sharing your resources. So I hope everybody else gets all the benefits and all the information that they need on selling. Yeah?
100%. I'll chat the link in one more time.
Sure.
Hope it's helpful, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Lauren. Bye-bye.
Hey, hope you like the recording. Do check us out at Ampliz B2B Binge for 11 more killer content. Also try out Ampliz Sales Buddy if you want to ring that next customer who is waiting for it.